But we have to mute it. Or maybe we don't have to, because it's not, once it goes on YouTube, you have to mute the YouTube.
Okay, well, we can do that when we go there. Live on YouTube.
You have the questions ready?
Yeah.
Hey,
Ready?
I don't think so after looking at those questions.
yeah.
Did she tell you I had a nightmare about it the night
About
after
the
this
questions?
podcast?
No? Okay.
What was your nightmare?
Having a disagreement with you and Dr. Abbasi.
The agreement is good. That's how
No,
people.
I had a nightmare. Woke up in sweats. It's not fun.
Hi guys, thanks for joining. This is Essence of Life. Today we're going to be talking about how we see the world from 3 different perspectives. My name is Amanda Armagost.
My name is Alyssa Haber.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence.
Okay, so we're just going to start off by doing like a round of questions, and everyone's going to give a simplified answer and try not to take more than 2 minutes per answer, please. Okay.
You ready? Got
Okay.
that?
Okay, so we're going to start with, how would you describe your outlook on life and what shapes your perspective?
I guess we kind of jumped into this
Mhm.
last time. I say that my outlook on life is definitely based more on kind of a realistic or a realism type of outlook, whereas I see things pretty much as they are at face value for the most part. What shapes my perspective are my experiences, the people around me. The more you know you don't know. And
Yeah.
that is exactly what I think continues to shape me.
I like that. I try and be kind of realistic with things, but I think I'm more of an optimist. I try and stay positive and try and find the light in things. I think that being happy is a choice. I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but you can choose to look at the negatives or you can choose to look at the positives. And every day I literally wake up and my first thought is always something positive. What shapes my perspective is I actually used to be really depressed and sad until I decided that that's wasting my own time. I don't really have enough things to be sad about. So I chose to stop focusing on those things and focus on things that make me happy.
Beautiful.
Except when your chicken don't give you enough eggs, then that makes you sad.
Yeah, that's true.
It makes me sad.
Thank you.
So, and I think for me is doing as much good as I can and grow professionally and personally. That I learn as much as I can and pass the knowledge, and that is for me fundamental boundaries of how I set my life. Grow, get better, do as much good as I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see that in you. That brings me to my next question is, what values or principles do you hold the most dear and why?
Oof.
That's a tough
That's a
one.
tough question.
It's a really tough one.
I'd like to think I have a very intense set of moral values.
I think you
for
do.
myself. So I don't even think I could dive into that. I mean, I'm gonna just be cliche and do that, treat others as you'd like to be treated. It's always a good rule to go with, but I like to treat others more or better than I would like to be treated, or
You
excessively. It's not all about how I want to be treated. I would rather have other people feel better, however it is.
Mm.
I'm kind of in the back burner of my own life. That's how I kind of roll, but it's okay too sometimes. I'm working on the balance.
Yeah, you are. You are working on that balance. I think that's a good way of describing you is I've heard the saying, treat people the way they earn to be treated or
Mm.
deserve to be treated. I don't think that you really follow that.
No.
A lot of people, even if they've earned your bad side, you give them your good side.
Try. Thank you.
Yeah, you do. For me, that's another tough question to answer because it's going to sound so cliche. And of course, if you ask someone who doesn't like me what my values or principles are, they're going to think that I have very different values than I think that I have. But similar to Alyssa, I like to try and see other people's perspectives as best that I can and treat them according to that.
Yeah, I think, you cannot talk about this without talking about cliches,
Yeah.
because cliches, they come from somewhere. Our moral compass is put in us through our upbringing, family, uh, society, faith, and so on. And those are things that the cliche are formed based upon as well. And yeah, I like what you said, Alyssa, that treat others better than you like
Right.
to be treated yourself. And I think I try, at least in my life, I treat the people what I think is the right way to treat them, independent of how they treat me.
Correct.
And not and that is that include as well, like that's cultural for us.
Mm.
What you think is, now I have to find a balance. In my culture, we go to another extreme. We say, the guest always get the best part. You always, give them, treat others better than you are expecting to be treated. And so it's something that comes to you as, like almost like a burden. And that sometimes it can be a burden that, when people do you wrong and you still turn the other cheek or
Oh, sure.
do something so you treat people better than they treat you. And that's sometimes people get the advantage of one, and so on and so forth. But you can't, I see in my life, I can see it as if they take advantage of me, but I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for myself. This is who I am. This is me being true to myself. Yeah, okay, I gave you something and you never ever given me anything. Next time you need me, I still give you what I can give you without truly expectation. And that is, in a way, at least if you read the Rumi, it's a 1,000-year-old Persian poet. It's about the meaning of love. One of his poems is, after all the years, sun still gives you warmth and never asks you anything for return. This is true love.
I think something else that I will point out, that I know you do this as well, but this is something I am really trying to work hard to, is, leading by example or through example. And that's something that we're saying, that, showing that positivity, giving, hoping that others will witness it, they will see it, and they will subconsciously even, absorb that. It goes a long way. So I think that's a good way to put that question for everyone.
Okay, so how do you approach and handle differences of opinion or conflicts with others?
This is a great question, considering I think we deal with differing opinions and conflicts every single day.
Yeah.
And I think the only way, I know it's not the only way, but the best way, in my opinion, to handle conflict or situations that you don't agree, number one, is listen. No matter what. We all have bias, whether we believe it or not. We can go into something thinking we're right, thinking someone's wrong, and then you listen to it, and then you go, oh,
yeah,
it clicks.
I've done that before.
Happens to me all the time, where I might think that my way is the best way or only way. It happens to
like
the
you
best of
started
us.
it with.
Yeah, and then the second you explain something, I go, you know what? If I wouldn't have listened to her, I would have never gotten here. So number one, communication will forever be the number one way that I get through conflicts or differentiating problems. Listening to them, speaking on it, communication. That is my one word answer for that question.
Yeah, sometimes it's tough though
It is.
to put yourself in a space where you are able to listen, and you're not kind of, sometimes when you're upset and you're trying to listen, you're not really trying to actively listen. You're
Correct.
letting the person talk and waiting for your turn to talk. I think that's something I'm trying to overcome when it comes to conflict. For me, a lot of times when I'm in a conflict, I try to listen. I don't always successfully listen. And when that happens, then it's usually
Not
like-
always
It's
successfully
true
listen.
though.
it's hard.
true.
It's
I
hard
get
to-
it.
It's you know that too, actually,
I
as
do
a
know
matter of
that.
fact. So sometimes if you're not able to listen, in my opinion, the best thing to do is actually to take some space
Okay.
and time. For me, if I'm really upset about something, a lot of times I actually need to distance myself and not address the situation until I've cooled down or I've like talked myself through it.
Mhm.
And then I'm usually a lot less upset and I'm more able to receive.
Yeah, absolutely. Level-headedness
Mhm.
is, yeah, you don't get anywhere in an argument when two people are on 100.
No, if you're fighting, you've both lost
Yep.
already.
I'm going to approach it from two different directions, you know. There are certain things we consider fact.
Yeah.
Like sky is blue. If somebody come and argue with you, sky's red or green, right?
Yeah.
No. Are we willing to listen to that person? Are we, or how long are we willing to listen to that person who says sky is green?
Yeah.
And in our life, we always consider so many things as fact, like, you know, your name is Amanda, it's a fact. And now somebody comes and, you know, that blonde girl, her name is
Ashley, I get called Ashley all the time.
yeah, no, but you see that there are lots of facts, and we get very impatient to argue about things that are facts. And that is exactly the problem. When you go down to what are really facts, and when you go down the rabbit hole, there are so few true facts. Almost everything ends up being an opinion at the end of the day. But if your life is like that, like such, 90% of the thing in your life is a fact, because you know little, because when you know more, you know the
You-
sky can be red.
Mhm.
When you know, you might have two names,
That's what
or
I said, the more you
there's
know, the
another
more
girl.
you know you don't know.
Yeah.
And but
That's great.
in life of people who 90% of the things are fact, only 10% opinion, people are more listening, more in doubt, more willing to gather the facts and so on, and to change their mind. Whereas in life of if they think, you know, 90% of the things are opinion,
Mhm.
10% are fact. But if everything for you is a fact, that this is how the life should be, and something as ridiculous how the life should
Mhm.
be is for them a fact,
Mhm.
not an opinion, not a way of different ways, you know. The fool know only one way of doing thing, and that is always has been done that way. But the wise man knows there are 10 ways, and it's just most of the time truly opinion, which one fits in your life better. And there is as well another word, the word of wisdom that I remember, that says the fools are so certain of everything, but the wise man or woman are so full of doubt and always questioning. And that has been as well proven to be a sociological fact, that there's so-called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Have you guys heard of that?
We
From
mentioned
you.
it.
Yeah, we have mentioned on this, right, that more you know what you don't know, and more you are, less you're confident about
Mhm.
your ways. And when you know a little, you're so confident that your way is the only way, and that's when you don't listen. And if you listen, you're just pretending, waiting for your turn.
Mhm.
Now, I had a very, very strict ideas about life. Like I was, you know, lots of things used to be wrong in my life, and they weren't wrong like for me, they were wrong for everybody. And now like sexual orientation and so on and so forth, I was very conservative, very firm about that. But more I grew, more I learned about the life. And one of the things though, I learned to help me to focus on right and wrong, and that is a big word in people's life, and that's what it is, you know. If we are trying to, we have our rights, we have our wrongs, and somebody else has different rights and
Mhm.
wrongs,
Yeah.
and we discuss them most of the time, unfortunately, not to find out what right and wrong is to convince somebody else that their rights are wrong and their wrongs
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
right, and so on. We're trying to bring them in our domain of
Right.
opinion. So that is,
Yeah.
unfortunately, most of the time it happens. But once you get this truly wisdom that basic, even physical thing, like, green and I can go on and on and on here,
Mhm.
based on what the color that you see, not even in our perception is the same. Something that I have color blindness.
Mhm.
Okay, so your green is very different than my green. Think that you see in one of those color charts that you see the number. I don't see it. You say it's 6, it's 6. I say, no, it is not. So even those basic physical facts, and once you start reading, knowing things, you discover how few, truly few things are in the whole universe that are fact. Almost, I would go up and say now 99.99999% of the things in the whole universe are opinion,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and very little are facts.
What I've noticed, and you had mentioned this, you said growing up, you hit a point where you start seeing the world, and then I've realized that, as we get older, that you have to make that conscious decision to change or to make yourself ask those questions,
Yeah.
ask why, develop that understanding.
Mhm.
Whereas I've noticed there's a lot of people that are okay with not questioning it,
Mhm.
like you had described. Like sometimes I'm learning new things every day. And the second I learn something new, I realize that there's a whole lineage behind it of stuff that I know nothing about.
Mhm.
And it can be overwhelming. And that is something that people get turned off of real quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why change your thought process or how you live when all it's going to do is cause chaos or extra work for them, when it's easy to just keep living.
Yeah.
And it was sad to see some of my friends or some family members not necessarily grow the same way that I did. But I realized at some point a few years ago how conscious that decision has to be when it's easier to just continue
Mhm.
living.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where we start to see the change or the people,
Yeah.
as we get into adulthood, you can start to see the people that are open to learning and ones that are not.
I see that all the time, and I have actually had the same thought process of you. Of it's a conscious decision to choose to understand other
eyes.
people, open your eyes. But actually, I'm almost on the opposite end of you, where I think it's easier to accept, or it's easier to try and understand than to say like, oh, I don't like those people because they're all wearing blue shirts.
Mhm.
I don't like blue shirts. Well, now you have this issue of not liking blue shirts where you could just not care.
Well, like we know there's things, if let me start over. In mental disorders, mental health, there's things where like egocentric,
Yeah.
whereas they are not aware that the things that they're doing could be, not good for them.
Yeah.
They see it as a
Mhm.
benefit. So as we
Self-sabotage,
might
yeah.
see like, oh, that's obvious. How do they not see it? Whereas to them, that is all part of their bus, how their gears
Mhm.
turn, and they don't necessarily realize that. So
Now, in the philosophy and in logic, there is a area called within the logic called dialectic, meaning that you take an argument apart
Mhm.
and identify the tenet of the argument and put it back together, and you see if it's consistent. Let's say, like you have a machine, like you take a machine apart and then you see these pieces, they just don't fit together. You don't have to look outside.
Mhm.
Like, you and I, we may have different opinion, and then I can do whatever I want to put on, try to enforce you my opinion, but that's really does nothing, usually does nothing. But let's talk about only your opinion and your construct of way of thinking. Let's take it apart. Let's see if it's consistent. That is, so there are philosophical ways to get to the truth as close as we can get, because obviously everything is not senseless. If there was any talk, would be senseless if everything was just opinion. then we could achieve nothing either.
Mhm.
Theoretically, we achieved we achieved the statistic kind of right and wrong. Well, a statistic right and wrong, it can be in one society, one group of people different than the others.
Mhm.
But I think there is a philosophical way as a society, even though everything is at the end of the day opinion, come to a conclusion that's acceptable for most of us.
Yeah.
That sometimes, it's a democracy, opinion of the majority, but that sometimes can go really wrong way. Like in 1937, most of the people who would have voted Hitler it wasn't an election, but they would have voted by vast majority, and they would have done everything the same way. All the horrible thing and so on would have happened if it was an election in 1937. Okay, so democracy is not the only thing, but there's another way. See, if that thought process is consistent in itself, without looking into other, you can look at the Christianity or all the religion thing and say, killing people is wrong. Okay, that is, we can agree on that, but you don't even need to go there to see that the Nazism and so on is wrong by itself. So what do they wanted to have? They wanted to have a greatest nation on the planet. And they excluded the brightest mind from that, what they wanted to build, just because the background were Jewish. And that's why they lost. See, they wanted to have, they expand to new areas that they chose for the expansion, they chose violence. And so that these are really, that it has consequences. See, they went to all these Baltic countries and they were applauded as liberators because they hated the Soviets even more. But then when they were there, they treat them even worse than the Soviets. And then, so you see that there, you don't need to look beyond a construct, and everything, our thoughts are a construct. The institution that we put together is construct. You build a construct and you see if it's consistent in itself, or is it this is a word actually Abraham Lincoln said, that a house in fight, he used other words, a house in fight in itself cannot stand. And that's
A
more
house, what?
a house in fight with it in
A
itself
house that's fighting with itself?
cannot stand.
That makes sense.
No,
yeah.
but that is what the whole idea is, that we can use lots of different, kind of. So I'm getting back at that. Yes, you listen to people, you talk to people, you try to see their point of view and so on. But at the end of the day, we have to act based on certain agreements,
Yep.
and we can come to those agreements. Democracy is one of the way. Faith, morality is one of the way, but they're not the only way. But there's a philosophical dialectic way of constructing thought processes and examining them if they can stand by themselves. Like, give me anything that we can be controversial here, but tell me anything that today in 2023 is a controversial issue.
There's one that's going on in my neighborhood right now. It's No Mow May. So
What is that?
it's pretty controversial actually. Environmentalists say you should not mow in May for a few reasons. Like the pollinators, they want the pollinators to be able to get those fresh flowers and stuff. A lot of bees nest in in where you would be mowing in those sticks and stuff. So it's supposedly better for the environment to not mow during May. But then other people are upset because then the neighborhood looks a little bit outgrown. And some people say the study was flawed. So that's pretty controversial right now in my neighborhood. A lot of people are fighting about it.
Okay, well, one of the ways would be to look at the tenant in the places they have done that or not, and so on, to see what the results are. This is result oriented. But as well, going to people, this is the dialectic, if it's house stand in itself. Go and look at the house of those people who who say that, propagate that.
That you
Are
should
they
or shouldn't make.
No, let's see if they do that or not. if they now this is just a theoretical thing.
Mhm.
If they say something but they don't themselves do that, then that's not consistent in itself.
Mhm.
You see, this is not about putting a value on anything. It's about to see if the
Yeah.
argument is consistent
Like
in
when the
itself.
New Jersey governor shut down beaches for COVID and then brought his whole family to the beach and
For
then
example.
was caught on camera
Did not
at
hear
the
that one.
beach with his family.
Or if the morality
Smart.
senator, if the Alaska senator who advocate morality and so on and so forth get caught, soliciting gay, prostitute in Minneapolis airport. I
He
mean,
did?
he did, yeah, many years ago. But so you see, you don't need to know what if it's moral or not, one way or another. But if you just say something, but you go just to the opposite, that is
Okay.
not consistent in
Mhm.
itself.
The leading
Then-
by example.
Yeah.
No, but that
True.
just says that construct, whatever he's putting in place, at least the way he put it in place, is not consistent in itself. So you can reject it.
Mhm.
Like we say, we are against, one opinion or another, but when it affect us, how do we go? People who affect them, how are they? Are they living
Mhm.
by example, or are they just
No,
they
exactly.
just don't want you have that?
I 100% make a judgment on someone's character based on if they do what they say they're going to do, or they live up to how they describe themselves. Because as we've
Mhm.
realized, the most confident people sometimes have the most subconscious,
Yeah.
insecurities.
But it is more
and-
complex than that.
I'm sure.
No,
This
but
is
I'm going to ask you this example now. Now, there's something like, we are all, and this is controversial, right?
Mhm.
The abortion and so on is very controversial thing. Now, one idea is, the people say the ending a life is wrong. Now, what is the consequence of that? Not having abortion. And that's horrible thing, is for people to decide, that, want
Well,
to
it's
end that.
hard on the woman.
No, but it's the decision. Some people say decision that some people say it's a decision of the society. But now let's continue that conversation. You say it is wrong to end that life when the baby is in the belly of the mother, but then the baby comes to life. What is the consequence of having that baby need help, that mother needs help? So if you say you're pro-life, but then you don't support that woman to raise that child in a good way, the construct in itself it falls apart.
I
So,
would agree.
but you have to be then, and absolutely, I think, it's absolutely okay to be pro-life, but then you have to
Really be pro-life.
consistent.
Here's my
Consistent.
example that we hear often. We've had this conversation, is like the persona of Christianity. We hear very often, or at least, from being a Christian myself, we're taught like you're supposed to be those good people that set the examples, that do right in the world. And if they're following the rules, then good for them, then they should be showing that example. We all know that there are plenty of people out there
Mhm.
that may claim that religion or any religion and then do not abide by those religious
No, but this is
morals or values.
Yeah, sure.
It's very controversial and confusing. And
Yeah.
that's something that I can look on and see. You claim to follow these values, these sets of morals, and then
Mhm.
you go and do this set of things that don't apply. That
Mhm.
can kind of show me, where your trust lies, where your head, your decision making.
Yeah.
Now, yes, it's a
Okay,
lot
I-
more
I-
deep than that.
Okay, well, I just want to clarify. I'm
Sure.
not trying to pass a moral judgment here.
Mhm.
What I'm trying to say, you built your entire life, your entire argument. It is about listening to people,
Mhm.
but then coming to a conclusion. It's about building a construct. Is that construct, thoughts process, is consistent in itself. Like you say, you're environmentalist, but then you spent $1 million to after Valdez, the oil spill.
Oh, the oil spill.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they had
BP.
it was another one. It was in Alaska where there were lots of oil on the beach and lots of animal They got,
Washed up.
no, they were live animals. They had
Oh,
oil on
covered in
themselves.
oil, Dawn dish salt.
I'd say those
No,
commercials.
They spent like $30,000 to clean the animals. Okay, $30,000 per animal to clean them, and 98% of those animals died anyways.
Hmm.
So you say you are for the environmental, but you're spending that money on something that really has, if anything, minuscule impact on the environment, rather than you could have spent that money to
Damage control, you could have spent
you
it
can have
on.
lots of
making
other
sure
things. And
didn't
so
happen in
are
the
you
first
doing
place.
it? Yeah, you say it's you're for environmental, but you're doing it just for your good feeling that you clean the pelican, oily pelican and so on. So now we are going far away.
Yeah,
from
I
it,
see
but
that would be a debate on its own because
Yeah.
me, I'm not a huge animal person per se, so I'm able to see that from a financial side as well.
Yeah.
And I just know Amanda is
No, I'm a huge animal person
you're just
and
a huge
I'm
animal person.
and I'm thinking, why are you wasting your time to prolong the life of this animal that's
misery.
going to
Sure.
suffer now because of you? So you hurt them once and now you're making everyone think you're helping
Yeah.
when you're hurting them again.
no,
So-
but just looking at the argument itself.
Your
So-
actions need to match your argument is basically the point you're trying to make.
Okay, I think we are almost there.
I think are there any more questions you want to ask?
No, I'm not really right now. I'm getting anxious to go and see my patient.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching. This is Essence of Life, How We See the World. I'm Amanda Armagost.
I'm Melissa Haber.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.